Welcome back to Season 2 of the Love Letters to Virginia podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Pasmino. Thanks for listening. Love Letters to Virginia, the podcast that keeps Virginia on the map, is sponsored by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started.
My name is Chuck Taylor. You are at WiseAcre Estate in Norfolk, Virginia.
So I understand that this is not just a place that you rent out for special events. You also live here, right?
So I moved here in January of 2014 from New York City. And I came here as a freelance journalist with the idea of being inspired by the view. So about a year into that, a friend of mine from New York tells me about this thing called Airbnb, where people stay in your house with you in the house. And I said, that's really weird. So about 8 years later, it is not weird at all. I had the great pleasure of 400 plus 5-star reviews. There is a fine line between interacting with your guests and giving them their space. So I have an office on one end of the house and my bedroom on the other end of the house. And so I allow my guests to indulge in all the space here. So over time, there came this moment where randomly on Airbnb, a young lady reached out to me and said, wow, this looks like a great place for a wedding. Do you host weddings? And I said, So now the weekends are primarily events, just beautiful weddings, birthday parties, retirement parties, music video shoots, yoga retreats, work offsites, you name it. It has taken place here. And then during the weekdays, I have Airbnb. So I am not freelance writing so much anymore. I have this beautiful chapter that I never saw coming.
Wonderful. Do you ever miss writing, or do you write for fun?
I still write. I occasionally will fill in at a previous job I had just to keep the chops sharp. I also have a blast volunteering for my neighborhood civic league, writing their quarterly newsletter. So words will always be part of who I am and part of my heart. But now the words I use are more audio as your host.
Beautiful. What would you say has been one of your favorite events that's been held here?
Every wedding is so joyous. I mean, imagine my home being part of every couple's life story. So they are showing their kids and their grandkids where they got married at this guy's house. I could not ask for a cooler legacy than that. Also, because the house is pretty chill, it's kind of playful, the couples I get are here to just celebrate with family and friends. I am very blessed to have never had a bridezilla.
Now that is a wonderful thing. Do the couples ever come to you for advice as to like where to get their catering from, things like that?
So I, of course, have worked with, I think, every caterer, DJ, officiant, bartender, you name it, in coastal Virginia, including porta potties. So, so I am always happy to make recommendations to my couples. It's very important to find the right vendor, particularly things like your rental company for tables and chairs, because part of my role is to make my couples' weekends drama-free and seamless. So if I have worked with someone that I trust, I am always going to put them on the list and invite them back.
Oh, that's good. Who do you usually like to work with?
So for rentals, there's a company called Affordable and Luxury Rentals. They have been here so many times that when Steve gets off the truck, Charlotte runs up to him and he knows my dog by name. It's just essential that the couples can count on the vendors to deliver what they say they will.
Yeah.
So for instance, Affordable, they're here when they promise. They deliver everything. Their pricing is transparent on their website. All of these things really matter to couples. So I want to make sure everyone in my house is treating me with respect and treating my couples like they've won the sweepstakes, because we're all in this together.
Beautiful. What do you think was one of the more challenging aspects of transitioning over into doing events?
I had a luxurious, gentle ride into moving down here, freelance writing, starting Airbnb, and then evolving into events. So there was this pivotal point, Vanessa, where I had a writing gig for 6 hours a day. So I would get a story assignment, and I'm working on that story, and I'm thinking, damn it, I got to change the sheets. I got to get the house vacuumed. My cleaning crew is here, and we have got to polish up. I don't have time to write this anymore. So there did come this really scary moment where I said, it's time for the writing gig to go. Because my hosting, my Airbnb, and my events are not only more lucrative, but I gotta be spot on and make sure that bed is made and those pillowcases are clean. And so I, after 4 years, let go of this phenomenal writing gig I had and just said, I'm all in. I am Mr. Rourke from Fantasy Island now. So when I was thinking of leaving New York City, I have friends that live in Virginia Beach, and ironically, I hate the ocean. I don't like cold salt water. I don't like hot sand. I don't like the grittiness. So it was a terrible fit on paper. So I came down here and I had a list of 14 houses to see when I got here. So I was very prepared for the journey, and I knew I wanted one story because the plan is I'm going to grow old here and I don't want to be climbing stairs. So one story. Water would be nice, just nowhere near the Atlantic Ocean, which automatically cuts out an enormous swath in coastal Virginia, but obviously we have lots of lakes and lots of water here. So one by one, I go to each house and I go to open houses, and you know in a moment when you walk in, if it's a no, if it's a maybe, or if it's a oh hell no.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of hell no's. I spent 13 years renovating an apartment in Brooklyn, so I'm kind of fearless when it comes to homes that need some love. Well, I had a list of 14 homes, and I walked in number 14. We're sitting in that home right now.
Oh, yeah.
So I did not have a realtor that day because this was exploratory. So the house was so beat to hell that the sliding doors in the porch right behind us were kind of hanging on their frames. So what would you do? Try to break in the house. So I tried to break in the house, and who the hell knew there was an alarm?
Oops.
Yeah. Set the alarm off. So thought, I think I'll come back tomorrow with a realtor. So the following day, I walked in the house, and it needed so much work. And I literally said to my realtor, Katie, oh shit, I think I'm home.
That's awesome.
So within the first 8 months, I replaced the heating and cooling, all of the sliding doors that were hanging on their frames, all of the windows, except thankfully the very large windows in this great room, which go up 20 feet. I brought in a gas line. There was a pool in the backyard. Unfortunately, the pool was falling into itself. So the walls on the side of the pool had caved in. It was a concrete pool, 10 feet deep, and it had cracks in it with trees growing out of the pool. So I thought, this is Virginia, not Fort Lauderdale. We're filling in the pool and getting a hot tub. So all of those things were done within the first 6 months. Then full bath, master bath, completely gutted. And that is all before I'd ever heard of Airbnb. So by the time this magical guest staying in your house with the owner there, the term is home share, started, all of the heavy lifting had been done.
Great.
So 2 years later, the kitchen was completely redone. And so now it's just a lot of polish from there. New patio, just lots of smaller, more cosmetic projects. But the miracle, Vanessa, this is the coolest thing. My house is taking care of me now. So what a gift. I get to meet these beautiful couples making memories in my house and get to be everything from the host to their uncle to their shrink for a weekend, and then continue making this house more and more of a home and hopefully a showplace for years to come.
How did you find out about Johnny Cash coming here?
So my previous next door neighbors next to this house, Loretta grew up next door as a kid. So she actually saw this house being built.
Wow.
And her mother became ill, she inherited the house, and then she and her husband fixed it up. And so they were my neighbors when I moved in. So the original owners, there was Guy Doherty, he was an attorney, and his wife, Margaret, was a professor at Old Dominion University in Norfolk. So here's the cool part. Margaret's daddy was George Hay, the founder of the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, wow.
So when George Hay retired he moved to Virginia Beach to be closer to his daughter. George Hay is actually buried in Virginia Beach. For some reason, he was not buried in Nashville. So when he died, there was a memorial, and my neighbor Loretta told me that after the memorial, there was a gathering here, and all of this Nashville royalty came to the house. Because Loretta saw it. She was a kid in 1968, I believe. And so Minnie Pearl was this very famous Nashville luminary who she was on a show called Hee Haw, and she was always known for wearing a hat with a tag. So Loretta said Minnie Pearl, who apparently was a very elegant lady, was here without the hat. So some people of a certain age have heard of Minnie Pearl, but everyone knows Johnny Cash. So Johnny Cash, there's a picture in the local newspaper, the Virginian Pilot, of Johnny Cash at that memorial. So there is true evidence. And then, as a journalist, I researched his timeline to try to figure out where he was at this certain point. He played in Norfolk.
Oh,
He
cool.
played in Norfolk that weekend. So all of the pieces truly aligned. I actually grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia. Went to James Madison University in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. Worked in Metro Washington, living in Alexandria and Arlington, Virginia. And then moved to New York. Now here I am in coastal Virginia. It's interesting. I regard Lynchburg, Northern Virginia, and Hampton Roads, coastal Virginia, as three different worlds.
Definitely.
I don't feel like there is a particular kinship to Central Virginia, which is very conservative, and Northern Virginia, which is essentially Washington, D.C., and coastal Virginia, which is all about water. So I have voted in the same elections most of my life, but I always feel like I'm in new and different worlds. I grew up in a part of Virginia, Lynchburg, which is very much considered the South. So in the South, everyone has a crazy aunt. And I have bragging rights to the same. Now, I say this with great love, but Aunt Lottie and Aunt Gypsy lived in a beautiful two-story colonial house in Lynchburg, in the cellar.
Oh.
Because the house was too good to use. So Aunt Lottie was married to Howard. They never had children. Howard died and left Lottie plenty of money to take care of herself and her sister, Gypsy, who was never married. But all of my life as a kid, I would go visit them in the cellar with concrete floors and pipes, and they slept in the cellar. And Aunt Lottie, who lived to the age of 190, that lady had a long, long life, would climb the stairs to the kitchen on the first level of the home and walk back down the stairs to bring Charles some apple juice, young Charles, that would be me. But otherwise, they always lived in the basement of their home, and all of the furniture was covered. Beautiful antiques. Too good to use.
Okay.
So, there is my Southern Virginia legacy crazy aunt story.